Most people, when they have tight, painful or restricted hip mobility, their first instinct is always to stretch. While stretching certainly has its place, mobility is about far more than just flexibility. Because no matter how much range of motion you have, if you don't have the strength to control it properly, you will barely benefit or make the problem even worse. So today, I'm gonna show you some of the best hip mobility exercises you can do to build more stable, stronger, and more mobile hips. So whether your goal is just better mobility, healthier joints, increased athletic performance, or simply moving without discomfort, these exercises are gonna help you to build the necessary foundation that true hip mobility depends on. So if you're ready, let's gonna have some fun. Now, just for the basics, while flexibility is your ability to lengthen a muscle all the way, mobility is your ability to take a joint through a longer and longer range of motion. And to have perfect hip mobility, there's a couple of muscles we need to work on. Our hip flexors, responsible for flexing our hips, our glutes, responsible for extending our hips, as well as the outside part of our glutes, responsible for abducting our hips, our adductors, responsible for adducting our hips. And when all of these work in conjunction with each other perfectly, we have basically already taken care of hip rotation as well, because now all of these muscles come into play within a single movement. Now, while most people are probably already aware of the classic glute bridge, strengthening our hip extensors, our biceps femoris, as well as our spinal erectors, because these muscles usually work in conjunction with each other in our day-to-day life, there are a couple of things we can do to make this exercise a lot more effective. Number one, as we progress, increasing our range of motion just slightly for the beginning by elevating our heels, now also including a lot of calf strength as well, and going through this exercise in a dynamic fashion, simply raising your feet before you place them down and go through a full range of motion again, can be very helpful to go through as long a movement as possible without cheating yourself out of it. Then of course we can work on single-sided raises, requiring even more strength from our glutes and now a lot of stabilization from our core, so we do not lose our balance or this parallel position from our hips towards the floor. And then of course, for people who are a little bit more advanced, we will place our heels on an elevation, go through as long a range of motion as we can, hold for a second or two and reverse, and then repeat the same thing one-sided for even more strength requirements as we progress and as the classic exercise gets way too easy to handle. And this one has a very long range of motion and very amazing activation of our entire posterior chain from our calves all the way towards our upper back musculature. An exercise which you can do for repetitions and is also very amazing to hold statically for 20, 30, 40 seconds at a time. Now, when it comes to their antagonists or the inside of our hips, this here is an exercise that most people will struggle to go through, strengthening their hip flexors, their quads, and of course adding a lot of core engagement as well. While this exercise looks very easy, it is much harder to deal with, especially if you have to hold this with your upper body fully upright for longer periods of time. So just to make this a little bit more accessible for everyone, by leaning back and working like so, you will require a lot less strength from your anterior chain, and as you progress, you will start sitting up more and more, go through the same exercise, and the more you lean forward, the more strength and the more flexibility you're going to require from your posterior chain to go through this movement pattern. And then this is where most people discover how weak they truly are when it comes to hip flexion. We're going to simply open up our legs wider, elevate our leg, and then we're going to actively move into external rotation in our hip, pull this leg out as far as we can and hold it with an extended back, now requiring even more strength from our quads, our hip flexors, and our core. Hold for a handful of seconds, reverse and repeat. You can do pulses if you want to, but I would highly suggest holding for as long as you can just to find out where your weaknesses are and how strong you actually are. As usual, this video is sponsored by you. You are my only sponsor. By liking this video, subscribing to the channel, watching the whole video until the end, maybe sharing it, hell, maybe even you're crazy enough to leave a comment. That is the only type of sponsorship I could ever ask for. I will diligently use the ad money to buy even more gourmet cat food. Now, when it comes to abduction, there is a very easy beginner-friendly exercise in which we simply lay down like so, start extending our hips by pushing them forward. Then all we need to do is simply elevate our hips, hold for a second or two, reverse and repeat, making sure that we are actively flexing the outside part of our butt, holding and reversing. And to make sure we're actually targeting this muscle properly, we will simply open up our knees like so. You can place your foot here, but on your other foot is even better. The more you move back like so, the easier this exercise will be. And as you extend more and more, the more strength you will require to elevate. And as you progress in strength, that elevation will come in handy again. We can start increasing our range of motion by actually moving into a stretch for our glutes and then elevating for a bit of a longer range of motion, holding the top, adding a lot more core engagement as well before we repeat. Keep your hips extended and move through a handful of repetitions, hold for a handful of seconds, or if you want to, start adding static holds where you move up to even a full minute of holding this statically. And this already helps us perfectly move into adduction. Now using that same elevation with our extended leg, keeping our hips extended as well, and now using the inside musculature in our thighs to raise our hips. Hold for a handful of seconds, reverse carefully and slowly before you start repeating. And once again, we can go through pulses like so, or we can simply release, hold the top for a handful of seconds and repeat. And as we progress in strength, these movements are going to get a lot longer and require a lot more core engagement in conjunction with our adductor strength as well. And you do not have to touch down, so we have even more engagement throughout the entire exercise by elevating, getting as close to the floor as you can, and then repeating once more. With this being an absurdly effective exercise for adductor strength or groin strength in general. And while the pigeon pose is amazing for flexibility in our glutes as well as our hip flexors on the extended side, as we start pushing our hips down closer to the floor like so and folding forward, increasing stretch in our glutes, elevating our upper body, increasing stretch in our hip flexors until you have a little bit more mobility surrounding your hip joint. To start combining this exercise with strength, moving into external rotation in our hips like so. As we elevate, we are flexing our posterior chain and the inside of our thigh. And as we reverse, we are stretching the outside of our leg, everything surrounding our hip joint. And believe it or not, this exercise can become far more effective and include far more muscles as we start moving this leg into internal hip rotation by flexing our adductors, holding for a second, now lengthening our quads and our hip flexors as well, especially once we start pushing our hips forward like so, and reversing. You can combine extension here, internal rotation here, external rotation and extension like so. And then I will add this here, but please only do this if you are truly advanced and if your mobility in your joints and the strength surrounding your joint is pretty decent. Because now we're going to move into ankle flexion like so with our toes on the floor, and we will combine the internal rotation with extension in our leg and requiring even more strength and control, the reversal of this movement by bending, moving carefully into external rotation and slowly reversing this movement until our knees on the floor before we repeat. Extend, internally rotate, externally rotate, and bend. Then adding two more very foundational, very important exercises, starting with something as simple as the classic deep squat, going through full flexion in our hips as well as full extension in our hips, playing around with our stance, going into very closed legs, a little bit wider apart with external rotation in our hips, now opening up and lengthening our adductors, moving down low, and you can even press your knees out to lengthen even more, adding a little bit more flexibility to our groin. And always moving into full extension to start strengthening our posterior chain and always pushing our hips forward, tilting our pelvis before we move into the next repetition. And then of course my favorite leg exercise, for which we'll have a couple of variations, the Cossack squat, which should be an addition to everyone's lower body strength and mobility routine. For one, adding a lot of flexibility to the inside of our thigh, as well as a lot of strength to our quads, our glutes, and our our adductors as well, which will require our extended leg to pull us up on one side while pushing with the other side. So now working in conjunction with all of these muscles. Having level number 1, our hips moving down towards knee height. Level number 2, more balance to this movement by raising our heel, requiring more strength from our toes and our core, keeping our foot pointed forward for even more adductor flexibility. And then with level number 3, we'll move up and add external rotation in the extended leg. And so we can add hip flexor flexibility one more time as well. We can add level number 4, where we start lowering our knee, pushing our hips forward, lengthening our adductors, adding external hip rotation. And if you want even more stretch for our anterior chain here, always cross over, right hand, left heel. Push forward, open up, and then either reverse with your hand on the floor, or if you can, cross over and use your own strength and control to move out of this before you lower down into the other direction. Level number 1, left, right. Level number 2, left, right. Level number 3, add external rotation, and we're always moving all the way up. And level number 4, hip extension, reverse, hip extension, and reverse. And level number 5, hip extension, crossover, reverse, and hip extension, up, crossover. And now with these exercises, we have built a nice foundation for some more advanced drills. Start in a deep squat position, extend one leg, pull it back, and repeat. Now adding a lot of strength to our hip flexors and our quads, as well as a lot of flexibility towards our glutes and the upper insertions of our hamstrings. And then adding the forward and the backwards, combining hip strength with core strength, leg strength, adductors included as well, before we reverse, repeat forward, push backwards, reverse out of it, and repeat into the other direction. An amazing core exercise as well, in conjunction with strengthening our hips massively and adding a little bit of arm, shoulder, and chest strength as well. And we're gonna take this to a whole new level as a finisher with 2 more exercises. The first one being my absolute favorite animal movement pattern or mobility pattern, the classic lizard crawl, adding a lot of strength, mobility, and coordination through this asymmetrical movement pattern, especially once we start moving backwards and staying as low to the ground as possible while adding as much rotation in our hips. Now adding all the muscles we worked on today in one single movement. Now once again, combining all of those muscles with a little bit of explosivity and more coordination, having already built the necessary mobility to be comfortable in a deep squat position, and is an exercise that is a little bit harder to demonstrate while talking, but the deep position close to the floor with the dynamic explosive movements and the added coordination throughout the whole pattern is absolutely amazing at building power, especially for people who want to advance when it comes to general athleticism as well, and not just when it comes to their mobility. Now, if you are still a beginner, the first 4 exercises and their progressions are more than enough to help you start building a solid foundation. And as you progress, you're gonna start adding one more exercise, then one more exercise, maybe leave out the more beginner-friendly ones and just start adding more advanced ones where we go through longer movements, more complex movement patterns, and start putting them together into a full routine. That's all the time I've left you today. However, we do stuff like that very, very regularly, which means I'll probably see you soon. So until then, have a good one. Captain Cairo. Peace out.